The sky in the wasteland is always gray, as if someone has been wiped with a rag, leaving behind a layer of dirty that cannot be washed away. Lin Hao squatted beside a pile of waste irons near the garbage yard, holding a raw wrench in his hand, knocking and beating his face with oil. He was wearing a torn work suit, his cuffs were almost exposed, and his foot was filled with various scattered parts. None of them looked new. This garbage dump is his floor and a place where he eats a meal. The survival method of wasteland is very simple. It can be broken, repair things, sell them, and change the synthetic food that can fill your stomach. "Brother Hao, what's the best deal for today?" A clear voice came from a distance, carrying a little tune of a pendant. Lin Hao didn't raise his head either, and he picked up a piece of broken copper wire from his foot and scattered it. "Chia, let's talk less. Help me sort this pile of garbage. Don't always think about replacing what you have done." Chia smiled, snatched the spoon on his back, and grabbed the waste iron. He is Lin Hao's smallness, as thin as a bamboo pole, wearing an old coat that doesn't fit, and always having a so-called smile on his face. Don't look at his unrighteous appearance. This guy's brain is very bright, especially good at swaying old electronic equipment. Lin Hao repaired the machinery, he broke the system, and the two of them were shaking the edge of this wasteland. Okay, I'll help you. But seriously, Brother Hao, the broken pieces here are almost turned over by us. When should we go to a deeper place to see? I heard that there are many good things in the Waste Soil Center, and I might be able to get some valuable armor parts. Chia said, and at the same time he took a piece of broken iron into the pile of categories, his eyes glancing at the horizon far away. Lin Hao snorted, stopped the work in his hand, wiped the sweat from his head. Waste Center? Do you want to die? That place is full of radiator monsters and wandering soldiers. We are going to deliver vegetables when we go there. Or actually shatter the slab. You can survive by raising the code. He said something, and his heart was a little moved. The garbage dumps on the wasteland are indeed not very good. In recent months, business has been getting worse and worse, and the prices of synthetic foods have almost doubled, and their days are getting more and more intense. Chia curled his lips and said nothing more. The two of them chatted and fucked each other until the sun shone into darkness. Lin Hao was about to pack his tools and go home when he suddenly heard a low vibration coming from the ground under his feet, as if something was about to move underground. He glanced at his eyebrows and looked down, and found that the iron plate on his foot was actually moving slightly, as if he was being attracted by some force. "Chia, did you hear it? This is a bit uneven." Lin Hao squatted down and tapped the iron plate with a wrench. The sound was as deep as if it was hitting some huge cavity. Chia also came over, and listened to the ground with his ears on the ground, and his face suddenly became a little weird. "Brother Hao, there seems to be something underneath." When the two of them looked at each other, their hearts were a little scared, but curiosity still took over. Lin Hao gritted his teeth and took out a crowbar from the toolbox. "No matter what it is, dig it out first. It may be an old storehouse with a valuable stock inside." Chia clicked the head and helped to move the surrounding waste iron, and the two began to pry the iron plate hard. After spending the power of the ox and tigers, the iron plate was finally lifted, revealing a narrow passage leading to the ground. It was pitch black inside, and you could almost hear a low-frequency buzzing sound, as if there was some machine moving. Lin Hao took out an old flashlight from the toolbox and looked at the inside of the passage. He found that the wall was full of old steel structures, like some kind of abandoned underground facilities. "This place, isn't it a disaster during the war, right?" Chia swallowed, with a little bit of excitement and a little bit of fear in his voice. Lin Hao didn't say anything, but just tightened the crowbar in his hand and walked down the first place. The air in the passage was damp and hot, and the steel plate under the foot kept squeaking sounds, as if it would collapse at any time. They walked about 10 meters, and the passage suddenly opened, and a huge underground space appeared in front of them. The light of the flashlight swept across the corner, and Lin Hao's pupils suddenly shrank. They stood in a warehouse, surrounded by old mechanical slaughter, some like pieces of a fighter, some like parts of some giant installation. But what shocked the most was the huge object in the center, a giant robot up to 100 meters high, quietly half kneeling on the ground, like a steel giant that had been sleeping for thousands of years. Its outer shell is dark golden, with scars left by the battle on its surface, and a huge energy groove on its chest, scattering faint blue light. Lin Hao has never seen such a large machine, and he has never even heard of it. He stood there blankly, with only one thought in his brain: is this thing the god of magic in the history? "Brother Hao, what is this? Chia's voice was trembling, his eyes staring at the giant robot, and the flashlight in his hand was almost falling to the ground. Lin Hao took a deep breath, suppressed the shock in his heart, and said in a low voice, "Don't be upset, let's see what's going on. If this thing is worth the money, we'll have it." He approached the robot carefully, his pace as if he was stepping on a mine point area. The closer you get, the more you can feel the invisible pressure, as if this steel giant would wake up at any time and crush them to pieces. Lin Hao plucked up his courage, reached out and touched the robot's foot armor. When his fingers touched the cold metal surface, he suddenly heard a low mechanical sound coming from above. The biosignal was detected. "Start the certification program." Lin Hao was shocked suddenly, and he quickly stepped back a few steps. He realized that the energy slot in the robot's chest suddenly lit up, and the blue light became stronger and stronger, making the entire underground space brighter and white. Chia sat directly on the ground in surprise and said in a daze, "Brother Hao, is this thing alive?" Lin Hao's heart beats like a drum, but he still stood firm and stared at the robot with his head. The blue light swept over his body, like some kind of scan, and then the mechanical sound came up again. "The certification was completed through the driver's confirmation. The system is being started." As the voice fell, the giant robot's eyes suddenly lit up with agri light, and the whole body began to stand up slowly, making a deafening mechanical friction sound. Lin Hao could only feel a powerful force coming from his feet, as if the entire underground space was shaking. His brain was blank, and he couldn't figure out what was going on. He just aware of the mechanical sound replying in his ears, the god of the machine star core, waiting for the command. "The core of the star?" Lin Hao murmured, his voice full of incredible. He has heard countless stories about the age god, that it was the most powerful weapon in the War of Heaven and could destroy the sky and earth, but it had long been lost with the end of the war. Unexpectedly, today he actually saw one, and was deterred. "Brother Hao, are we so angry?" Chia finally got up, his face as white as a ghost. Lin Hao didn't answer, but just stared at the robot tightly, and his heart was in a mess. He knew that once this thing was exposed, their lives would be over. The wasteland is full of troops and forces that do not use means to provide resources and means. The weapons of the god of age are enough to cause a bloody rain. At this moment, a violent explosion suddenly came from the top of the underground space, and gravel and soil fell from above, as if someone was forcing the broken entrance. Lin Hao felt nervous and hurriedly pulled Chia to hide beside the robot foot, and said in a low voice, "Someone is here, don't make a sound." Before the sound of the words came, several strong lights shot down from above, followed by a tidy sound of footsteps. Several dozen soldiers in full-armed clothes rushed in from the entrance of the passage, wearing a unified black iron armor and holding a high-energy invader in their hands. They obviously were not ordinary wandering soldiers. The man in the head is tall, wearing a dark red military outfit, and a half-metal mask on his face. The exposed half-face is as cold as if it can suck ice. The scan results show that the source of the god of the mechanism is here. The man's low voice replied in the space, carrying unquestionable pressure. He glanced around, his eyes finally locked on the giant robot, and a sneer came out of the corner of his mouth. "Star Core. It's you. I've been looking for it for so many years, and finally let me wait until this day." Lin Hao hid in the darkness and felt a sank in his heart when he heard this. Although he didn't know this man, he was definitely not a good man from his attitude and equipment. Chia's voice said in his ears, "Brother Hao, this guy looks like someone from the International Alliance. We can't afford to offend him, so run away." "Run? Where run?" Lin Hao bit his teeth tightly and stared at the group of soldiers. He knew that running now would only expose himself, and the only hope was that this robot could help them take off. He lowered his head and glanced at his palm. When he was scanned, he felt a wonderful connection, as if he could directly feel the existence of the robot. The core of the star. If you can really hear me, help me solve these guys. Lin Hao said silently in his heart, and closed his eyes and tried to concentrate. The next second, he suddenly felt a powerful force rushing into his brain, as if the whole person was pulled into a virtual space, with various data flows and control interfaces in front of him. Driving command confirms, fighting mode starts. The mechanical sound started again, and then the giant robot suddenly raised his arm, and the energy groove in his chest burst out with dazzling blue light. The man in the mask reacted very quickly, and he flicked aside almost the moment the energy wave ejected, avoiding a fatal blow. He raised his head, with a burst of surprise and excitement in his eyes. It's interesting, there's a driver already. It seems that this game will be more interesting than I thought. Lin Hao opened his eyes quietly, only to feel his whole body trembling. He was obviously not moving, but he could clearly feel every move of the robot, as if he had made that hit by his own hands. He looked down at his hands, feeling both excited and scared in his heart. Is this power really his? Brother Hao, don't be stunned, we have to go away. Chia's voice pulled him back to reality. Lin Hao pointed his head and gritted his teeth and said, okay, while they have not reacted yet, let's withdraw. He closed his eyes again and tried to control the robot, and let out a low growl. The core of the star is to cover us to leave. The robot seemed to have understood his order, and turned around suddenly, smashed the side wall of the underground space with a punch, opening a passage. Lin Hao and Chia hurriedly followed, and took advantage of the smoke and quickly drilled into the passage and escaped. Behind him, the masked man looked at the direction they disappeared, took off his gloves, revealing a mechanical limb. He murmured in a low voice, "Run, little devil. No matter where you run, the star core is mine. Carlos Hyken never falls empty-handed." Lin Hao and Chia ran all the way until they ran out of the garbage dump and stopped. The two of them leaned against a wasteland panting, sweating profusely. Lin Hao looked at the giant robot standing quietly in the ruins, like a loyal guardian, and his heart was filled with mixed feelings. He knew that from this moment on his life would never be peaceful again. Brother Hao, what should I do next? Then the helper will definitely not let us go. Chia wiped his sweat, his face full of worry. Lin Hao was silent for a while, clamped his fists tightly, and said in a low voice, "No matter what, we have to survive first. Since this thing has chosen me, I have to figure out what it is, and why the helper has to snatch it." Just then, a deep engine sound suddenly came from a distance, and an old floating car drove from the horizon and stopped in front of them. The car door opened, and a woman in a long black dress walked down, wearing a pair of ink glasses on her face, and her aura was so strong that people dared not look directly. She glanced at Lin Hao and Chia, and her eyes finally stopped on the giant robot. With a low voice and a sandy voice, "It seems that I'm coming at the right time. The driver of the star core, I want to talk to you about it." Lin Hao was stunned, subconsciously in front of Chia, and asked vigilantly, "Who are you? What do you want to fuck?" The woman took off the ink lens and showed a pair of sharp eyes, and the corners of her mouth slightly raised. "My name is Erica Iron. Trust me, child, you need someone who can help you survive now. And I happen to know all the secrets of this magic god." Lin Hao stood beside the pile of wastelands. His heartbeat had not completely calmed down. The shock brought by the rushing run and the star core made his brain a mess. He looked at the woman in front of him, who was called Erica Iron, with a look full of rings. Her aura was too strong. She could see a body-covered combat equipment under her black sweater, and a dangerous energy dagger was hanging around her waist. Such people are definitely not ordinary wanderers who are surrounded by wasteland. "Help me survive? Why do you want me to believe you?" Lin Hao gritted his teeth, and there was a little dissatisfaction in his voice, but his hands subconsciously clenched his fists. He knew that he and Chia had no ability to resist at all, and that soldier who helped the Black Iron wore armor and the masked guy might catch up at any time. If this woman is really malicious, they probably won't be able to escape. Erica didn't rush to answer, but just turned her head slightly. Her eyes swept over the star core standing in the ruins far away. the giant robot still emitted a faint blue light, as if it could start again at any time. She hummed lightly and turned to Lin Hao. Her lingering voice was filled with an unquestionable sense of pressure, because I know that this is coming, and I know why Carlos Haywan would pay for it at all costs. More importantly, I know how to prevent you from being crushed into pieces by him. Child, you are now like a sheep that is erratic in the wolves, and you can't figure out what you hold in your hands. Carlos Haywan? Lin Hao was stunned for a moment, and the sneer of the masked man just now, and the group of well-trained soldiers under his command. His heart sank, and he thought that the name sounded unsimple. Chia next to him couldn't help but interrupt, and a little bit in his voice, "Sister, is the guy you are talking about, is the person from the International Alliance? Is that warrior who controls half of the Silver River?" Erica clicked a little, and her eyes were filled with a chilling voice. "It's right. Carlos Black, the Dark Core of the Star Alliance, has an army modified from the skeleton of the armor, under which he specializes in killing the accidental discoverers like you. He wants the core of the Star Cores not for collection, but for the use of its power to govern the entire Silver River. Your just in the moment has exposed the position of this skeleton god. Believe me, his horse will soon turn this piece of wasteland into the sky." Lin Hao felt tired in his heart, turned his head and looked at Chia, and found that this guy's face was whiter than his. He gritted his teeth and asked with a firm heart, "What about you? Who are you? Why do you know so much? Don't tell me you are a passionate person who has been on the way." Elika smiled, not much warmth in her smile. She took out a small metal card from her shirt pocket, with a string of incomprehensible codes engraved on it, and told Lin Hao at will, "I was once the core researcher of the giant robot plan, the birth of the core of stars, and I participated in every ring. To be honest, I know more about the secrets of this thing than Carlos. As for why it helps you, because I have my own reasons, and you happen to be the only driver who can start this magical god. We can cooperate and benefit each other." Lin Hao took the metal card and looked over and over. Although he couldn't understand the code above, the quality of the brand was not like the broken ones that could be easily shaken on the wasteland. He thrust his heart for a moment, but still didn't completely let go of his rings. Cooperation? Why is it a cooperative method? Also, if you say you are a researcher, why do you appear in this ghost place? This place is not a ghost place, this is the sleeping cemetery of the Star Core. Erica's lingering spirit was filled with a complex emotion. She turned to look at the giant robot, with a light that was difficult to grasp. "As for cooperation, it's very simple. I'll teach you how to kill this magic god, how to survive under Carlos' pursuit, and you, help me complete some things." "What is it? Isn't the time to tell you now?" Chia couldn't help but mutter, "Why does it sound like a cheating person when you hear it?" "Brother Hao, don't be fooled by this elder sister." Lin Hao glared at him, signaled him to close his mouth, then took a deep breath, and looked at Erica. "Okay, I believe you very much. But I have a condition. No matter what you want to fuck, you have to ensure our safety first. If there is a little disagreement, Ninka will jump into the radiator pit with this robot, and it will not make you successful." Erica raised her eyebrows, as if she was a little surprised by Lin Hao's attitude, but immediately said, "Disclaimer. However, now it's not the time to talk about the conditions. Carlos's people will catch up soon. We have to leave this wasteland first and go to a safe place," she said, turning towards the floating car, and reiterated without looking back, "Get on the car, kids, time is not waiting for anyone." Lin Hao and Chia looked at each other, and although they were still a little nervous, they also knew that there was no choice now. They followed Erica onto the car, and the floating car made a low engine sound and quickly drove out of the garbage. Outside the car window, the deserted sky was still gray, and the figure of the Star Core far away became smaller until it disappeared on the horizon. Lin Hao felt in his heart that he could not speak, as if from this moment on, he really embarked on a road that he could not return to. The floating car was flying on the wasteland, and the atmosphere inside the car was a little depressed. Erica opened the car with great attention, occasionally glanced at Lin Hao and Chia through the mirror, as if she was evaluating their status at any time. Chia sat in the back seat, couldn't help looking west, and asked in a low voice, "Sister, where are we going?" You can't keep it open, right? Go to a place you've never heard of, a shelter. Erica's voice was calm as if she was chatting about home. That was a secret point deep in the soil, and Carlos's hand couldn't reach there. When you get there, I will teach you how to hide the signal of the Star Core and will also give you, Lin Hao, the first official driving training. Driving training? Lin Hao was stunned, and the wonderful sense of contact was just before he was in the underground space. He looked down at his palm, looking both expectant and scared in his heart. You said, can I really control that big guy? Of course, but only if you have to learn how to share the bird with it. Erica glanced at him, with a little hype in her language. The core of stars is not an ordinary machine. It has its own ideas, or it is some advanced artificial intelligence. You can just start it, just because your biological signal matches it, but to really exert its power, you have to let it recognize you not just as a driver, but as a partner. Partner? Lin Hao glanced at his eyebrows, feeling that this statement sounded a little mysterious. Chia next to him couldn't help but interrupt. Sister, what do you mean is that the big iron block can still make friends with people? This is too disgusting. Erica ignored Chia's comment and said lightly, you will understand what I mean soon. The power of the Star Core is far beyond your imagination, but it is also dangerous. Why do you think Carlos is trying to snatch it so hard? Because once this is out of control, it is enough to destroy the entire galaxy. Lin Hao felt nervous when he heard this, and the scene of the robot's chest bursting out with blue light. He knew that Erica was not proud, and that just that energy wave could blow up a whole piece of wasteland into flat ground with poop. If this machine has greater potential as she said, then what he is holding now is simply a regular blow-up. The slump car opened and turned the scenery of the wasteland from a deserted garbage field to a more steep radiant wasteland. The sky far away was constantly passing through the strange purple light, and there was a pungent smell in the air. Lin Hao looked out from the car window, and his heart became more and more uneasy. Is this place really a safe place? Safety is relative. Erica replied, and then suddenly hit the direction plate and turned the float into a secret island path. There are high rock walls on both sides of the road, almost covering the sky, and the car constantly rubs through the rocks, making a harsh friction sound. Chia's face was so scared that he muttered, Sister, your driving skills are really not that good. Erica hummed and ignored him. After a few minutes, the ferry finally stopped. In front of him was a clearing ground surrounded by rock walls, and a huge iron door in the center that looked like the entrance of a mine. The iron door is full of lenses, but you can see some old electronic equipment, such as some kind of defense system. Here, the Greyburn is a refuge. Erica jumped out of the car, walked to the iron door, took out a piece of something similar to a metal card from her waist, and pasted it on a scan slot next to the door. A few seconds later, a low mechanical sound came out from the iron door, opening slowly, revealing a passage leading to the underground. Lin Hao and Chia followed her in. The air in the passage was more damper than outside. Water droplets dripped from the walls frequently, and the steel plate under the foot squeaked. After walking about a few hundred meters, the passage suddenly opened and a huge underground base appeared in front of me. The lights in the base are dim, but you can see many people busy, some repairing machinery, some moving supplies, and several people wearing clothes similar to war equipment, and practicing on the side. This place is a base for resistance? Lin Hao couldn't help asking, with a little surprise in his voice. He had heard a lot of news on the side of the wasteland, saying that some people opposed the International Alliance's rule and hid deep in the wasteland to form resistance troops, but they had never seen each other with their own eyes. Resistance? It's okay, but we're more like a group of people who don't want to be trampled by Carlos. Erica took them through the crowd and walked to a control room deep in the base. This place is the aftermath of the Sky War. Some of the R&D teams of the Star Crane that year were hiding here to try to protect the secrets of the robot god. Unfortunately, after the war ended, these people died and scattered, and now only we are the ones who are behind us, guarding a bunch of broken and incomplete data. The control room is filled with old screens and instruments, with several technicians busy tapping the keyboard, and various data and maps are displayed on the screen. Erica walked to a table, picked up a tablet and clicked a few times. A panoramic picture of wasteland was displayed on the screen, with several red signal points marked on it. This is Carlos' search range. She pointed to a red area on the map. Her language became more and more serious. When you activated the star core, you released a wave of powerful energy signals, which had been captured by his detector. Now, his men are narrowing the search range, and at most 3 days, they will find your previous location. Lin Hao felt nervous when he heard this, and couldn't help asking, "What should we do with the star core?" "We left it outside and were found by them." "Don't worry, it won't be so easy to find." Erica stopped him and sneered, "The star core has a self-control mechanism. As long as you, the driver, is not present, it will automatically enter the concealment mode, and the energy signal will be suppressed to a minimum. Unless Carlos comes out of his own, his men will not find it at all. But this does not mean that we can relax. You have to learn to control it as quickly as possible, otherwise you will not even have the chance to escape in the next fight." In the next few days, Erica began to conduct high-strength training on Lin Hao. She first took him to a simulated driving, a device that was piled with waste parts. Although it looked broken, it could simulate the control interface of the star core. Lin Hao sat in the driving wheel, wearing a helmet connecting the nerves on his head, and there were various data flows and virtual war scenes in front of him. "Concentrate and feel its existence." Erica stood aside, her voice as cold as an instructor. "The core of stars is not an ordinary machine. It will respond to your will, but only if you have to let yourself go completely and not resist its power." Lin Hao gritted his teeth and tried to do what Erica said, but every time he closed his eyes, his brain became a group. He could feel a powerful force trying to connect with him, but the force was too great, as if he was going to swallow him up. He couldn't help but slam, and the result was that the alarm sounds in the simulated roller kept ringing, and the screen showed connection failed. "It's a failure again." Lin Hao took off his helmet, leaned on the seat with sweat, and said panting, "What's going on with this thing? Why do I think it doesn't listen to me at all?" Erica glanced at her eyebrows and walked over and knocked on his brain, "Because you are afraid of it. You are resisting in your heart and thinking it will harm you, so it can't feel your trust." Hearing, "Lin Hao, the star core is not your enemy, and when it chooses you, it means it is willing to fight with you. You have to learn to believe it, just like trusting your partner." Lin Hao was stunned for a moment, and his brain was flashed by the smiling face of Chia's romance, and the word partner that Erica just said. He took a deep breath, put on his helmet again, and said in a low voice, "Okay, I'll try again." This time, he tried to let go of himself, not thinking about those messy thoughts, but focusing on the power in his brain. Rarely, he felt a wonderful connection, as if a low voice sounded in his ears, "Driving. Command confirm." The next second, the simulated screen lit up, showing the words "connected successfully." "It's done!" Lin Hao couldn't help but shout and looked at Erica excitedly. The other party clicked a little and finally showed a satisfied expression on his face. "It's great. It's beyond my expectations for being able to do this for the first time. But this is just the beginning. Next, you have to learn to sync with it on the real battlefield, otherwise everything will be empty talk." At the same time, in the base's monitoring room, Chia was busy cracking Carlos' search signal with several technical personnel. Although he can't drive, his sensitivity to electronic systems is inherently born. He stared at the jumping data on the screen, his fingers quickly hit the keyboard, and his mouth still complained, "This encryption technology that helps the guy is really changing. I have given up on others long ago, and Chia, can last for so long." A technical staff member next to him couldn't help laughing and said, "Brother, you're so silly. But seriously, can you really crack this thing? This is the military-level encryption of the Star Alliance, and half of our cracking equipment is probably not able to be solved. It will be solved even if it is not solved." Chia gritted his teeth and stared at the screen. "Brother, how now depends on me to fight for him for time. I can't drag my back. If that guy Carlos finds us, no one wants to live." At this moment, a red alarm suddenly popped up on the screen, showing the enemy signal is approaching. less than 50 kilometers away from the gray-burning escape. Chia's face became difficult to look instantly. He slapped the table suddenly and turned around and shouted, "Come on, please inform Erica quickly, Carlos's people are here. We need to be ready." The atmosphere at the base suddenly became tight, and the warning voice spread across the entire underground space. People began to move quickly and prepare for the upcoming battle. Lin Hao just came out of the simulation and heard the silence outside. He felt nervous and hurried out of the training room. He saw Erica holding a communication device, her face as if it could drip out of water. "What's going on?" Lin Hao asked, gasping, wondering if he had a bad feeling. Erica turned to look at him, with a solemn expression in her language. "Carlos was faster than I expected, and his pioneer team was approaching the shelter. We have to start the Star Corps immediately and prepare for the battle. Are you ready?" Lin Hao was stunned for a moment, his heart beat like a drumbeat. He knew that this moment finally came. He must really capture the giant robot and face Carlos's army. He clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth and said, "Prepare. Come on, no matter who he is, we will accompany you to the end." The warning sounded in the underground space where the Gray was sheltered, like a death-seeking drum, which made everyone nervous. Lin Hao stood at the entrance of the training room, his chest was undulating, and he was instantly blown by the actual pressure at the simulated wheel. He looked at Erica's face that was as cold as ice, and knew in his heart that this battle was not only about experiencing his connection with the core of stars, but also about whether everyone could survive. "Don't be stunned, move quickly." Erica's voice was low and rapid. She grabbed Lin Hao's arm and pulled him to the control room deep in the base. The crowd along the way was in a group, some were moving weapons, and some were checking the defense system. The air was filled with a suffocating smell. Chia came out of the monitoring room and his face turned white as paper. When he saw Lin Hao, he shouted, "Brother Hao, Carlos helped the guy too quickly. The Pioneer team has at least 3 modified machine armors, and there are also most teams behind. We have to tightly tune the Star Corps." Lin Hao clicked his head, but there was a little trouble in his brain. He knew that the Star Corps is now in the hiding mode of the wasteland. To wake it up and adjust it to the vicinity of the refuge, he needs to be completely synchronized with the mind of the god of the movement. But just now he was in the simulation and he had to establish a little contact. Now that he really wanted to go to the battlefield, he was not sure. In the control room, several technical personnel were busy adjusting the signal transmitter, and the wasteland map was displayed on the screen, and the red enemy mark was approaching the shelter like a venomous snake. Erica walked to a main console, tapped the keyboard quickly with her fingers, and said to Lin Hao, "I have sent out the call signal. The Star Corps will sense your position and automatically come. But before it arrives, you have to calm your mind and prepare to synchronize with it. Carlos's Pioneer team will not wait for you to adapt slowly." Lin Hao took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and tried to recall the feeling he felt in the simulated wheel. The low mechanical sound echoed in his brain again, like a low voice far away. "The driver is receiving the command." He could feel a faint connection being established, but the distance was far from full synchronization. He clenched his teeth, and his sweat came out from his head. All of Erica's words, "Believe in it, just like trusting your partner. Brother Hao, don't be too stubborn, come slowly." Chia stood aside, his voice full of concern. Although he didn't understand the driving god, he knew that Lin Hao was gritting his teeth and slashing. Lin Hao didn't say anything, but just slapped his hand and signaled him not to beat him. He knew that every extra second now, Carlos's men were closer to them. At this moment, the control room's communications suddenly emitted a harsh noise, followed by a cold sound, carrying unquestionable threat. "I am Carlos Blackman. I'm the one you hide. I'll make up for the things you're hiding. I can give you your life by handing over the Court of Stars. Otherwise, this piece of wasteland will become your tomb." Lin Hao suddenly opened his eyes, and his heart felt cold. This sound was the sound of the masked man heard in the underground space that day. It seemed that he could directly penetrate his bones, making people feel cold and upset. Erica's face also sank. She turned off the communication device and snorted coldly, "This guy is really awesome. However, he spoke to himself, saying that he hadn't arrived yet and that all he came to was the pioneer team. We still have time. Time? How much can it be? Lin Hao couldn't help asking, with a little impatient voice. He could feel that the star core was responding to his call from afar, but the contact was still halted, like a line that would break at any time. At most half an hour. Erica looked at the red mark on the screen. Her language was so cold that it made people feel angry. After half an hour, Carlos's pioneer team would arrive at the entrance to the escape. If the star core has not arrived yet, we have to rely on the base's defense system to handle it. But those modified armors are not easy to deal with, and our firepower will be delayed for a little longer. Lin Hao gritted his teeth, and felt a sluggish in his heart. He simply sat in the center of the control room with his legs closed, and focused his energy. He knew that now was not the time to be hesitant, and he had to try it whether he could do it or not. In the brain, the low mechanical sound became clearer and clearer, like a reply from a distance. Driving driver, the synchronization rate is increasing, the battle mode is ready to start. At the same time, Carlos's pioneer troops were approaching on the sprint path outside the refuge. 3 modified machine armors were at the forefront, each of which was more than 30 meters high, and were filled with weapons that were scrambling from the ruins. The gun barrel and energy blade flashed coldly under the dim skylight. There were dozens of black iron war armor soldiers following behind the armor. The high-energy invaders in their hands were loaded and ready to open fire at any time. In the armored driver in the lead, a soldier with a scar on his face grinned and said to his subordinates through the communication channel, "The boss said that it is best to find the driver and capture it alive, and he has to take it back even if he dies. As for the others, it doesn't matter if he kills them all." The defense system of the shelter was the first to launch, and the automatic turrets on both sides of the iron gate began to roar, and the dense energy hit the enemy team like a rain spot. However, the shells of those modified armor are abnormally hard, and the energy hits it only leaves a scorch mark, and the speed does not slow down much. The soldiers sneered and ordered, "Counterattack, open the broken door." The 3 armors raised their arms at the same time, and a dazzling red light burst out from their muzzles. 3 thick energy columns directly slammed the iron door. The explosion of the impact wave made the entire valley shake. Although the iron door is solid, it still begins to deform under such firepower, and cracks appear on the surface. The warnings in the base were even more harsh, and the faces of people in the control room were more difficult to see. "Brother Hao, hurry up, the door is about to be over." Chiao was sweating profusely, and his fingers kept tapping on the keyboard. He tried to delay the time through the long-distance system of the enemy's machine. But the other party's encryption technology is actually too strong, and his cracking speed is not as fast as the enemy's attack rhythm. Lin Hao heard the explosion outside, and his heart felt as anxious as being burned by fire, but he forced himself to calm down and kept silent in his brain. "The core of the star, I heard my words and came over. We need you." Finally, after a violent spiritual wave, he felt a powerful force flowing from afar, as if the whole wasteland was shaking. The next second, a huge blue signal point appeared on the screen in the control room, approaching the shelter at a startling speed. "Come!" Erica suddenly raised her head, and a flash of excitement flashed in her eyes. "The star core has arrived at the battleground. Lin Hao, prepare for synchronization, it depends on you now." Lin Hao opened his eyes quietly, his face full of sweat, but his eyes were abnormally calm. He stood up, walked to an emergency exit in the control room, and pushed the door open, and a biting cold wind came towards him. Far away, the sky in the wasteland was reddish by the explosion of flames, and in the chaos, a 100-meter-high steel giant was walking from the horizon, making the ground tremble with each step, and the energy trough in its chest emitted dazzling blue light. "The core of the star." Lin Hao murmured softly, feeling an unprecedented sense of contact. He closed his eyes, and the mechanical sound in the brain sounded, "Driving driver, the synchronization rate reaches 85%, and the battle mode is activated." The next second, his entire person seemed to be sucked into a virtual space, and his eyes were full of the control interface of Star Core, and the data was brushed like a waterfall. at the battleground where the 3 modified armors had almost opened the iron door. The soldiers were about to order the last blow when they suddenly heard a low sound from behind. He turned his head and his pupils suddenly shrank. The Stardead core that was described as Stardead core was standing far away, and the red eyes lit up, as if the god of death had descended. Is this what the boss wants? The Bing Bing swallowed, and there was a little trembling in his voice, but he quickly calmed down and shouted through the channel, "Don't be afraid, give it to me." The boss said that no matter how strong this thing is, someone will have to drive it, find the driver, and fuck him. 3 modified armors turned around at the same time, and the artillery fire was aimed at the star-killing core, and the energy bullets and guiding bullets came out as if they were not worth money. But the star cores just raised one arm, and a blue shield burst out from the energy groove in the chest. All attacks were easily knocked down, and even a little wave was not raised. Lin Hao snorted coldly in the consciousness space, and with a thought, the robot god suddenly rushed forward and punched the nearest modified machine armor. The punch was like a thunderous chariot, directly smashing the other party's armor to pieces. The driver who modified the armor was torn open. The soldiers had no chance to react, and they were shocked by the raid waves and fell heavily to the ground. The remaining 2 machines saw the armor and quickly stepped back and sent out a helping signal, but Lin Hao did not give them a chance to breathe. The star cores swept his hands, and 2 energy blades shot out from his arms, accurately cutting the other party's core power system. The 2 armors instantly sucked and fell down with black smoke. This power is so strong. Lin Hao gasped in the consciousness space, feeling that his spirit was extremely consumed, but at the same time, there was also a kind of excitement that was difficult to describe. He never thought that he could kill such a monster, as if the entire battle was under his control. In the distance, Chia looked at the battle on the screen and couldn't help but shout, "Brother Hao is awesome. Just fuck him, give the helper a little look." Erica stood aside, with no joy on her face. She said in a low voice, "Don't be too excited too early, this is just a pioneer team. Carlos's army is still behind, and Lin Hao's mental power can't be squeezed for too long, so we have to tightly formulate an evacuation plan." At the battlefield, after the Star Coronation solved 3 modified armors, it began to clean up the remaining Black Iron War armor soldiers. Although the soldiers were well trained, they were simply unable to beat the enemy in front of the Age God and were all beaten within a few minutes. Lin Hao was about to let the God of Energy return to the vicinity of the refuge when he suddenly felt a stinging pain coming from his brain, as if his mind was torn to pieces by something. Driving. The synchronization rate dropped. Warning, the mental burden was too high. As the mechanical sound began to sound, Lin Hao's vision began to blur. He gritted his teeth and tried to calm his mind, but he still felt that the movement of the star coronary became slow. At this moment, a deep engine sound suddenly came from the sky far away, and a huge Star Wars crash descended with a black knife mark marked by the Star Alliance. The door of the warship opened and a tall figure walked out. It was Carlos Haywin. He was wearing the half-metal mask, and the dark red army was slightly floating in the wind of the wasteland, his eyes as cold as if they could save everything. He looked at the star cores that were not far away, and sneered at the corner of his mouth, "Little devil, you're having a good time. But the game ends here. The star cores is mine. You are a snail like this, you have no qualifications to touch it." Lin Hao heard this in the consciousness space and his heart sank. He could feel the pressure emitting from Carlos, which was far beyond what those pioneers could compare to. What's worse is that his mental power is approaching the limit, and the synchronization rate of the star crystal is declining rapidly. He gritted his teeth and thought, "No, you can't fall down at this time." At this moment, Erica's voice came through the communication channel, carrying a hurried look, "Lin Hao, don't be snatched." Carlos brought the main team, and his special armor Dark Blade. "Your current state is not his opponent at all. It's hard to retreat and avoid, we have a plan." "Retreat?" Lin Hao gasped, his brain full of fighting scenes. He knew Erica was right, but there was a feeling of unwillingness in his heart. He said in a low voice, "Okay, I'll hear you, but I'll have to figure it out with this guy for this account." The star core retreated slowly under Lin Hao's control, and the light in the energy groove in his chest gradually dimmed, as if he had entered a certain energy mode. Carlos looked at this scene and did not rush to chase him. He just said coldly, "Run, little deer. I will give you some time to grow, but remember, you can't escape for long. The entire Silver River is my key." In the refuge, Lin Hao left the space of consciousness, suddenly opened his eyes, and found that he was sweating heavily, and his body seemed to have been hollowed out. He leaned against the wall, gasping for breath, and Carlos's sneering face was still in his brain. Erica walked over and patted his shoulder, with a little relief in her language. "It's been a good deal. It's beyond my expectations for the first real battle. But next time, we have to withdraw immediately, and Carlos won't give us a chance to breathe." Chia also ran over, his face full of worry. "Brother Hao, are you okay? I just saw your face look like a ghost, and I was scared to death." Lin Hao reluctantly smiled and slapped his hand. "If you can't die, you're a little tired. Where are we going next?" Erica turned toward the control room screen, marking a new coordinate on the map in an unknown area deeper than the wasteland. She said in a low voice, "Go to the Sky Fracture, which is the forbidden land left after the Celestial War. It is said that there is the true secret of the God of the Moon. No matter how long Carlos's hand is, he dare not step into it easily. We have to regroup there and help you fully master the power of the Star Core." Lin Hao pointed his head and a huge hope ignited in his heart. He knew that this battle was not over, and Carlos was still catching on behind him, and the secret of Star Core was not only seen on the surface. He clenched his fists and looked at the sky far away with a firm look, as if he was to himself and to the steel giant, "I will go on. Cores of stars, we still have to fight together, right?" The people who were in a difficult place began to quickly pack up their supplies and prepare to evacuate. The sky in the wasteland was still gray, but under that cloud, a larger storm was shaking. Lin Hao stood at the exit and watched the Star Core walk slowly, like a loyal guardian, and felt indescribable in his heart. He knew that the next road would only be more risky than it is now, but as long as this steel giant is here, he would have the courage to face everything.